Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is to create a new test. So we can either do it manually or by using the artisan. And I'm within my projects directory, pwd, which is this mailing list. What I'm going to do is simply run php artisan and make test, and the name of this test is going to be mailing list test. Hit return and the test has been created. If we check our test directory, you can see mailing test has been added. What I'm going to be making use of is this database migrations trait. So use database migrations, and I don't need these other two, so I'm going to remove them. Now we are going to remove this test as well, and I'm going to start with a new test, which is going to be called displays upload form. Basically, we're going to determine whether the upload form is displayed on the page. So test tag to make sure that it's obviously a test. And we're going to start by visiting the /, which is the root of our site and then our project, and then we're going to say that we should see element input with the following attributes. Type should be file and name should also be file. And then we should also see another element, and I'm just going to duplicate this line. It should also be of an input type, and then type attribute should be submit, which will be the button that submits the form, and name should be, what name? It's not going to have a name, we're going to have a value instead, which is going to be the label for the button, and I'm going to expect upload in capital. If we save it, run the test php unit, and obviously we have a problem here. If we scroll up, it tells us that we get 500, and this is because we caused by a view welcome not found, the same error that we saw in the browser. So what we need to do now is, first of all, check our roots. If we go to the web, which is responsible for the what we are trying to access, this web interface, /, what I want to do is basically I want to redirect it to mailing list controller, and on this controller I want to have an index method which will basically load this view for the form. And then I'm going to duplicate this method, change the method to post, same controller, and this one will simply have a method store associated with it. So index will display the page with the form, store will process the form and display the results. And that's all the roots that we're going to have within this project, so we can save and close this file. Now we also need to create this control, obviously, because we don't have it. So if I just clear the screen, php artisan make controller, and controller name was mailing list controller. Hit return. That should now be added to our HTTP directory controllers, and there we go, mailing list controller. By the way, you can remove this authentication directory if you're not using the authentication within this project. I won't be creating any authentication here. It's just purely for basically filtering and importing CSV files. Okay, so within this mailing list controller, what I'm going to have here is these two methods. First one is the index, so public function index, and it will return the view. I'm going to be using this return type declarations here, available with PHP 7. And we're going to say display import form. And now in my ID, because it's still highlighting, I just need to go to PHP. And if we scroll down to language and frameworks, I want to make sure that I'm using 7.1. And that's the one that I've got, the interpreter that I've got installed on this machine. Apply and OK, and now this highlight is gone. That's just in case if you are using PHP Storm as well and have the same problem. Okay, so now this one we return the view, which will be located within the mailing-list directory, full stop, and the file name is going to be index.php, so just index. So it's going to be index.blade.php, so just index. And that's all within our index method, then public function store. And we are going, for the time being, I'm just going to leave it like this. I'm only going to indicate that I also will return the view. Let's just add doc block. And what I'm going to say here is upload file and store results. And there will be a parameter in just a moment, but for the time being, just to make sure that our roots aren't squeaking, we just add the stub of this method. Okay, let's create this mailing list directory within our resources, then views. Let's create a new directory called mailing list. Within this directory, I'm going to create this index.blade.php. And inside of this blade file, what I'm going to do, remove this opening PHP tag, I'm going to extend our template, which we've copied with the exercise files, this template.blade template, and then section for the section content, and we are going to put our form here with the heading and so on, and then end section. So here, if we just open this template.blade, you'll see it's a really simple file. I've just imported some Google Fonts here, Zerp Foundation from the Content Delivery Network, and then some simple styling just to make it look a little bit half decent, basically. And then we have some row and a column of a given width and so on. Okay, so for our index view, what we're going to do is, first of all, I'm going to wrap everything within the wrapper. So div class wrapper. And inside of this wrapper, I'm going to put h1, saying something like mailing a list. And then on a new line, I'm going to filter and import. And then I'm going to do if statement, and I'm going to check if there are any errors, because we're going to be submitting the form. And again, I'm not using Ajax here, I'm not using jQuery, I'm not using Vue, Angular, anything. I'm just going to use straight PHP and the functionality that comes with Laravel out of the box. So we're checking for errors count. If there are any errors, if there's more than 0, then that means we have some errors and we are going to display them. And if here, and for this one, I'm going to just go for each errors. All for all of them, as each one as error represented by the error variable, and then end for each. Here I'm going to put the span with a class warning, so that's going to be just making the text red, and in between the curly brackets just the error variable, so whatever message is associated with this error. So that's our errors right above the form. And now form will have method post, will have action. It's not about action. We want to post to the root as well, so just the /, and then enc type, because we are uploading the file, multipart form data. That's our form tag. And in between, first of all, we need to add CSRF token. So CSRF srf field, so that it's going to add input together with this token for the value associated with the value attribute, and then input, which if I just scroll up, this input will be of the type file. The name is going to be file, and that's all I need for this one. And then input for the submit button, so type submit, value upload, and class I'm going to apply here expanded button, so it's going to go all across. Okay, if I now save it, and if we try and run the test again, whoops, no, wrong one, so PHP unit, and there we go, we've got one test, 3 assertions, all of which are passing. So now if we preview our page, the landing page, there we go, that's our form, the heading form. When we click on that, obviously this allows us to select the file, and our expanded button with the upload label going across the entire layout. Okay, so that's our form ready. We can now save and close this index.blade.php file. Our index view is completed. If we go back to our mailing list test, the next thing what I'm going to test for is going to be actually the upload. So we're going to start with public function returns validation error if submitted without the file selected. Okay, and again, that's a test, so let's just add some test tag here. Okay, and here I'm going to simply post to the root, and then assert response status. I'm expecting to be response, and we're using Illuminate HTTP response, and I want to get HTTP found because this one is returned when there's a validation error, and it basically redirects us back to the landing page with the errors then being available within the view as this errors variable. Okay, and after this, actually, let's just terminate it here. So we are expecting to be redirected. Let's just import this response here as well, right at the top. So Illuminate HTTP response. And after this, I'm also going to assert that this assert session has errors, and the errors that I'm expecting to have are file for the file field, and what it should be. Now, the message should be the same as if we go to the resources language en and then validation, and for the file, we're going to look for the file index. So if we scroll down file, the attribute must be a file. So that's what we should see within this session for errors. Now, attribute is going to be replaced with the name attribute. So I'm just going to replace this colon attribute with the file. So the file must be a file. That's what we should get as a validation message. Obviously, if we run the test now, we don't have any validation yet, so that's going to fail. Tells us the expected state is 302, got 500. Now, it doesn't tell us exactly what happened. It just tells us that obviously rather than having this 302 status codes, we got 500. So there's some internal server error obviously being thrown back. Now, mailing list test on line 26. 26 line is this assert response status. Obviously, we didn't get that one. If we get 500 error, then obviously if we go back to storage logs in open our Laravel log, we can examine it for to try and identify the problem. Now, as you can see, this is also contained the previous error that we had. So I'm just going to remove this file first and then going to run the test again. So delete it. There we go. And now I'm going to run this test again so that we get this error as the first item within this file. There we go. The file has been regenerated. And it tells me the type of return value of store must be an instance of view non-return. So if we go back to our controller, I indicated that returns view, but it doesn't return it. So I'm just going to quickly return view, and it's going to be mailing-list. And the other file is going to be called result, and it's going to be result.blade.php. So I'm just quickly going to create this file as well under this mailing list directory. So new PHP file, result.blade.php. There we go. And here I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So extend template. There we go. And then section content. For content, we are going to display all these results, and section. For the time being, that's how I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to do anything else. I just want to get rid of this error. We can remove this Laravel log as well. So if there's any other one, it's going to be generated straight away. I'm just going to clear the screen here, Command K on the keyboard on Mac, and then run PHP unit again. And now we get something different. Expected state is 302, got 200, so there's no problem basically. And this is because we don't have any validation, obviously. And the way I want to do the validation is by the use of the form request. So what I'm going to do is go back to the terminal, and I'm going to clear everything again and use PHP artisan make request, and I'm going to call it upload mailing list request and hit return, and that creates the request. Command K to clear the screen again. Now if we scroll up, and under the app HTTP request, we see our upload mailing list request. And now first of all, authorize, I'm going to set it to true. We are not doing any authorization here. And for the rules, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to actually provide the return statement here as well, assuming that I'm going to be launching this on PHP 7 server array from this one. And here I'm going to put file, which is the name of the input. If we just go back to our view, index.blade, our input name is file, so that's the index that we're going to be using here for this array, and we want to make sure that the file, that basically this field isn't empty, so required, then that it's of an file type, and I want to make sure that we only allow CSV files. And now for CSVs, we need to use MIMEs colon CSV, but also TXT. I tried with just CSV, it didn't work. You have to have TXT as well. So these are the rules that we're expecting. If I now run the test, obviously nothing's gonna change because we still didn't apply this request we didn't add this request as a dependency for our store method. So let's quickly do this as well. Upload mailing list request as request, and let's add it to the doc block straight away. Update doc block, there we go. If we save it and now run it, and there we go, that changes now. We have failed asserting that an array contains the file must be a file. Now we must be getting something different here. And this is because if we go to upload mailing list request, first of all, we are checking if there's anything, so required rather than file. So if we go back to our validation, for the required message is required, there we go, there. So, the attribute field is required. So copy this one, and actually this is what we should be getting. So not the file must be a file, it's going to be the attribute field is required. And obviously the name of this field is field as a file as well. So the file field is required. That's what we should be getting. Let's now clear the screen, run the test again, and there we go. 2 tests, 6 assertions. So when we visit the page, we get the form with these fields. And then when we try and post without the file attached, then we are getting the error saying that obviously the file field is required. So we didn't attach any file, we submitted the form, you need to select the file, otherwise it's invalid. Okay, so that's it for this video. Let's move to the next one when we're going to be continuing with our tests and our upload.